The White House is searching for a new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics after the president fired the old one because he didn't like the jobs report. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett was trying to justify that decision.
When the data are unreliable, when they keep being revised all over the place, then there are going to be people that wonder if there's a partisan pattern in the data. And so I think what we need is a fresh set of eyes at the BLS, somebody who can clean this thing up.
All right, CNN's Matt Egan is with us now. What's been the reaction to this?
Well, I think it's been alarm, John, right? When you talk to investors and CEOs and former U.S. officials, this was stunning, right? Hours after the worst jobs report in years, President Trump fires the person who is in charge of the agency that puts together the jobs report. This would be like an NFL owner who responds to his team losing big by immediately firing the scoreboard operator, right? It's like you may not like the results, but the messenger is probably not your biggest problem. And we should stress that there's no evidence to support this claim that the BLS was somehow cooking the books here. Even Trump's former BLS chief, William Beach, he told CNN's Casey Hunt over the weekend, it's not even possible for the BLS commissioner to manipulate the data. Take a listen to what he said.
I don't think there's any grounds at all for this firing, and it really hurts the statistical system. It undermines credibility.
The president said that the BLS commissioner rigged these numbers.
Yeah.
What do you think?
There's no way for that to happen. The commissioner doesn't do anything to collect the numbers. The commissioner doesn't see the numbers until Wednesday before they're published. I was commissioner, and I was sometimes locked out of the process of actually, where the people were working in the building. So there's no way for doing that.
No way for doing that. And again, that was the president's former BLS commissioner. And look, there's so much at stake here. BLS, it doesn't just put out the jobs report. This is the agency that also collects the CPI inflation report, wholesale inflation, a number of different jobs indicators. And there's practical implications too, right? The BLS puts together the data that decides the cost of living adjustments for Social Security. And investors, CEOs, economists, they rely on accurate and trustworthy data, right, to make decisions. Without it, they'd be flying blind. Same thing for the Federal Reserve, which relies on data to decide whether or not to lower or raise interest rates. I talked to Moody's Analytics economist Mark Zandi. He told me he's hired a number of former BLS officials. He said they're terrific, and he said the Bureau of Labor Statistics has done its work to the highest standard. Anything that undermines that, or even the perception of that high standard, is deeply worrisome. And look, it's true that none of these reports are perfect. There's going to be revisions from time to time. It is a massive economy, but the BLS is considered the gold standard. And this whole controversy, this decision to fire the BLS chief, is going to raise some doubt in how much we can trust the numbers going forward. And just one last point here, John. If you're the president, you want people to be able to deliver you bad news, right? Because if they just sugarcoat everything, you're not going to know the bad news until it's too late.
Firing the scoreboard operator. Matt Egan, great analogy there.
Thanks, John.
Thanks. Omar?
With me now is CNN Global Economics Analyst and Associate Editor of the Financial Times, Rana Foroohar. Good to see you again. Felt like I was just talking to you about a similar topic. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers called Trump's claim that the BLS statistician manipulated the jobs report a preposterous charge. Take a listen also to the former head of BLS here.
I said groundless. I don't think there's any grounds at all for this firing, and it really hurts the statistical system. It undermines credibility in BLS. Suppose that they get a new commissioner, and this person, male or female, are just the best people possible, right? And they do a bad number. Well, everybody's going to think, well, it's not as bad as it probably really is, because they're going to suspect political influence. So this is damaging. This is not what we need to have.
What do you think this means for the next jobs report that inevitably comes out a month from now?
You know, Omar, I think it's so corrosive. It brings this kind of post-fact world that we seem to be living in to the actual data, to the math, to the things that, seem to be nonpartisan or have seemed to be nonpartisan. They are, in fact. But suddenly it opens up this Pandora's box that if you're a Democrat, you might see it one way. If you're a Republican, you might see it another way. The facts of the matter are that each time the jobs numbers have come out, and when they've sometimes been revised, they've not either benefited or been bad for Trump. They've been both. I mean, this is the same bureau and the same commissioner that he was lauding when good numbers came out, and now the bad numbers are coming out. He's firing them. And I think one thing that really worries me is that this is what you see in autocracies. This is what you see in emerging markets that don't have rule of law, that don't have democratic governments. You see the firing of officials that people don't like. You see leaders closing themselves off to the truth. I thought Matt Egan made a very good point there. The idea that, you want somebody to be able to deliver you bad news so that you can make good decisions. In many other countries that are uninvestable around the world, that doesn't happen. And I'm sad to see it happening here in the U.S. now.
And look, whoever gets named next would need to be confirmed by the Senate. Obviously, we know these days that is not always a slam dunk process. If we get to this point next month and we have another set of jobs numbers coming out and we don't have a confirmed head of the BLS, in theory, by the administration's theory, someone that they can trust at the head of the BLS, do we run the same risk of further corroding? I just wonder how you assess that potential scenario.
100%. I mean, well, for starters, there's been a lot of cuts in government. And it's interesting, actually, it's worth noting that the latest jobs report, one of the reasons that they're lower is that there's been so much cutting at the federal government level and some at the state level. So in this strangely ironic way, Trump is actually sort of, complaining about the very cuts that his administration made. We definitely need someone in that position. People need to know, investors need to know that the stats are good, that the stats are right. You have a bureau full of public servants that I'm sure will do their very best in lieu of a commissioner being in charge. But again, this is, and I think I said this to you the other day, this is a bit like a drip, drip, drip. You may not see a huge market reaction today, but all of the things that this president is doing, from politicizing the Fed to the on-off again tariff wars to this firing, are just corroding trust in the U.S. That's one of the reasons why gold prices are so high. It's one of the reasons why every single time we do a treasury bond auction, you see fewer and fewer foreign investors wanting to buy. It has a cumulative effect, and we will feel it at some point.
And just quickly before we go, we're days away from Trump's tariffs taking effect. The U.S. trade rep saying over the weekend that these tariff rates are pretty much set. Is the appetite or the ability for the economy to withstand a tariff future now different than what the outlook was in April when that first set of tariff rates were announced in the so-called Liberation Day?
Yeah, I think, again, that's another drip, drip, drip. I mean, you've seen a little bit of an impact, but tariffs are not something that hit overnight, right? Because goods are on boats. It takes 6 weeks, a few months for them to get here. Different stores have different amounts of supply and stock. So it's something that plays out over time, but we are certainly farther along that process than we were back in April. I expect you are going to start seeing consumers feel the pinch. I suspect if we were doing this segment in a month from now, we'd be saying, boy, people are starting to feel the pinch, assuming nothing changes. And I think by fall, that will be even more true.
And the uncertainty around it could also be affecting some of the jobs numbers and revisions we've seen around it as well. Rana Foroohar, really appreciate the time and insight as always. Good to see you.